All right, you guys, we are here with our friends. We've got Mindy, we've got Jessica, and we've got Anna, and they are going to be talking to us about the residency program. Stay tuned. All right, here we are. We have them. We tackled them. We had to pin them down to get them to talk about this residency program that they just had published. This has been big talk around respiratory therapy, and it has been absolutely amazing. So let's just jump into it. Like, what was the brainchild of this residency program?
Great question. So, what we found at Memorial Hermann in Southeast Texas was just like everyone was finding around the country with nursing as well, is that there was a staffing shortage, and not only a staffing shortage, but people were coming out of school with some opportunities, and that's my favorite word these days. And so knowing that nurse residencies have been around for many years and there's like 300 plus around the nation, we had a very prominent nurse leader at Memorial Hermann who was like, why aren't we doing this with our respiratory therapist? And so the conversation got started almost right when COVID was still there, but not as robust, probably around 2021. And then from there, it just started taking off. The foundation was what really took some time, right? So we had to figure out what would be beneficial for the RTs. How could we make that how could we make a program that would be beneficial for our RTs, but similar to the foundation that nurses have? And so we do have a nurse residency program. We use that foundation to build a respiratory residency program.
Yeah, so when I was in school, Mindy, did you have one of these too? I had an internship.
We didn't have an internship at Ohio State. When you get boarded on, you do, I think, maybe 6 weeks of additional training in all areas of your hospital. So whether it's that you want to specialize in NICU, go through all of the units, the machine, your ventilators that you use at your specific hospital kind of thing. And they do like training, testing, competency kind of thing, but there's no like residency is what they call it.
Right. So one of the things that I did was I got hired on as a student, right? And it was a student therapist or student tech or whatever they called me at the time. And we got training on how to do normal SVNs. We would do EKGs. We could do ISs, O2 checks, all the non-invasive things is what we could do. And whenever I was in a spot where I could be an educator, one of the things that I did was I wanted to beef that thing up, right? We had a lot of students that had some opportunities, right? And when we called them student techs, they didn't really understand that it was still an interview process, right? So getting the opportunity to call them an intern and have them go through an internship, they knew that the entire process was still an interview, right? And we were able to beef ours up similar to what you guys did with didactic content and also hands-on training and simulation and things like that. And it was the fall or the summer of 2019 that we revamped and we launched an internship. And it seems like it was very similar to what you guys have done. So have you guys looked at hiring in students and doing an internship to help beef that up as well?
So that's actually one of my next projects.
Okay.
We have a very successful PSN program where we hire nurses in their last semester, and we bring them on as students, and they basically get an extended orientation internship. But as employees, they're getting paid.
Oh yeah.
And that I want to model that because we do well at TMC Memorial Hermann, right? We have a very acute population that 6 and 8 weeks is not enough. Right? I'm sending you out into the wild with not enough orientation. There's no way for me to get enough. So I really want to beef that up and leverage them as students so we can know what they're doing before we hire them full time, right?
Yeah. Those are awesome. So you guys you published your residency program. What was that like?
Oh, that was a labor of love.
Yeah, so a little personal journey. I ended up having two babies back to back, and so yes, thank you, they are a blessing. But when we're on our fourth cohort right now, and so we had started talking about wanting to publish from day one. Why? Because we understand the value of this. And coming back a little bit to one of your questions, JJ, is other professions other than nursing, therapists, doctors, they do residencies. So why can't we? And so
Of course.
we wanted to really invest, but for me, I wanted to prove that what we were doing, all the work we were putting in to create this program and ensure that the RTs had that essentially assistance from going from academia to bedside was working. And so how do you do that? You do that with data. And so before the program got started, we built surveys using the Casey Fink nursing residency surveys that they use at Vizient, and we modified them to help assess our program. And so we have a cadence where the residents take those surveys. So it's at 1 month, initiation, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and 24 months. And you can imagine how the 12 months and 24 months goes, because you have to read your email and check things. And so that's really hard. But we were trying to get that information as well to ensure, retention, but also just to make sure we're still staying abreast to where they're at clinically. But that data was able, when we ran the data, finally, we ran it around cohort 1.5. So essentially we were into our second cohort, but we're like, we have enough that let's look at publishing. And so we used Jamovi, statistical analysis system, and we found that what we were doing was working. And so I was like, we need to get this out immediately. Why? Because there was nothing published on this work. Chris Pacuto up in Northeast US, I think he's in Boston, Massachusetts. He had put out a paper that kind of led us right into the work because his paper was that we need residencies. He had done a study on his new grads and looked at some of those opportunities, specifically around mentorship, peer-to-peer relationships, feeling like you're that newbie and you don't have that support from people who have been doing this for 20 years, some of those clinical gaps, specifically nitric oxide administration and application. And so his article led very nicely into creating our article, and we've given him, he's part of references, but truly his work was groundbreaking too. But now I'm like data hungry, and I'm like, everything we do has to have data to support it, and like to say, hey, to my boss, this is why this is still valuable. And so anytime I have a discussion about residencies with any of my colleagues around the country, they always ask me, what should I do first? And they're always thinking that they need to, they need to build a curriculum that makes sense. And I'm like, well, wait, first you need to know where your gaps are. Like, what needs to be focused on? Is it the communication related to having a discussion with your provider, or is it a communication related to having conversations with your immediate, peers, or is it because you don't know how to use nitric oxide or whatever it is? And so you need to look at those where your hospital is falling short, essentially.
It needs assessment.
Exactly. And then build from there. But then before you start building that curriculum, build that survey or assessment to make sure at the end of the day what you're doing is purposeful. Because what's the first thing that gets cut in respiratory? Education, right? Where can we cut if we need to cut? Unfortunately, as an educator, that hurts my heart, but that is one of the things that they're like, okay, well, we don't need this, but we do need this. So that's something that helped drive the data. And then now that we have that to prove, we're constantly making iterations, changes to the curriculum and the content, including more.
Yeah.
So Jessica, has this helped retention and recruitment in your department throughout the hospital?
So yes, actually, it has helped a lot. And I can speak for, I had the largest cohort of new grads the first time. I think I had 15 in that first cohort. So it was a chunk, right? But we have retained all but one of them. So that is amazing, because that's 2 years out. And they're excelling. So some of those have turned into supervisors. They're precepting, they're progressing their careers. And that gave them that jump start to get there.
Oh,
They
good.
didn't have to learn it the hard way like I did, just all out in the wild, figuring it out, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, because they build the confidence through the residency. So they're not so scared and timid when they go out to see patients or to hook up nitric. Nitric was terrifying to me because the first time I hooked it up was with an oscillator in the Ross Hospital during H1N1. And that was several years ago. But, that as a new grad, you're like, oh my gosh, this is some serious stuff. So confidence is definitely good. During this process, have you guys ran into any roadblocks, any pushback, anything that kind of like, well, maybe we shouldn't do this, or has it been full support?
I'll share and then I'll let Anna share from her perspective related to her campus. I think with any program, there's always going to be roadblocks, and that is where I thrive. I like to improve. I'm a fixer. One of the things we found is pay, right? So everybody that's a new grad with less than a year of experience starts in this program. You don't have an option to opt out. Why? Because we know it holds value. But with that in mind, we also have to constantly look at our market and the Houston area to ensure that the pay is just as important, because new grads, they know that other places are paying. And while this is valuable and we make sure that they know the why, like we're here to ensure your application of the stuff you just learned in school is there, but you also have people to support you. But that was one of the roadblocks. So ensuring competitive pay pretty much year round, every year. Another roadblock was change management.
Oh, yeah.
And what do I mean by that? That came from not just the residents, but my leaders, my managers, directors, ensuring the preceptors, we're going to, you know how it is to precept a new grad. It's completely different than someone who has 5 years of experience, but we need you to invest because these are going to take over our roles, and generationally, we're going to need them in how many, 10 years. So we need to make sure that they feel part of our culture and embedded into our system at Memorial Hermann.
Yeah. So our biggest roadblock, I think, was our culture and accepting all of those new grads as they came in. And then as they progressed in their knowledge, the older therapists didn't want to give them credit for that knowledge. That was a huge culture shift for us, right? Like, you only have 6 months of experience. You went through this program. That's fine. You don't know. But then they ended up teaching my older therapist things because they had all of this knowledge front loaded. And it was really amazing to watch them share all of that knowledge out in the units. And yeah, so that was really fun. But that culture was a huge shift for us.
I can definitely see that, especially somebody who's been practicing for a long time. A lot of them are set in their ways and they do things their way. So when we have these new grads come in and they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. But our new grads are very, very smart and they adapt well. So, it would do everyone a huge favor if we learn from new grads, especially if they go through a residency.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I always like to I'll onboard people with experience and I'll give them to someone who has 3 or 4 years of experience. And they're like, well, I can't learn from them. No, you can. You can learn from them here because they've had the experience here. Listen to them. Have them teach you the tricks. They know things.
Yeah. I'm hoping one day, and this is completely kind of opposite, but it kind of, I guess, mocks off what you guys have been doing, but maybe one day when we grow the APRT, I know nurses and have nurse practitioners have residencies for their NPs or PAs. Maybe we'll, as APPs ourselves, we'll be able to join those residencies to get that practice too. Coming from me practicing for the first time, it's scary. I mean, it's like starting RT all over again at just a very advanced level. So I think this will be great to take nationwide, and then we can adapt new things later on. So
yeah, the thing Jessica did really well in this program was getting other people involved. So it's not just me and her talking, right? It's our physicians come and talk about ECMO, and they're the specialists. They know, and you can ask them questions. They're very approachable. She gets everyone to come.
Diving into that, one thing that we talk a lot about and is the clinical skills. But what we're really seeing an opportunity in is those professional skills, the soft skills, communication, having a conversation if we're not having a disagreement in the line of therapy that we're suggesting, or ethics, death and dying. I had a resident who was in the neoped space. They had never compassionately extubated. They had never extubated in their schooling.
Right.
And now that I'm telling them, you are definitely going to be doing this probably somewhere in the near future, unfortunately. And she was like, no, 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 I just can't. And so we have a full day, and it's actually for this cohort, it's coming up in just a couple of weeks, where it's a full day where I tell them it's trigger warning day. You're going to talk about your feelings related to death and dying, grief and loss, caring for patients at the end of their life. And all those speakers, it's the VP of chaplain at the entire system talking about this. I have a social worker talking about the grief and loss. I outsource the content so that they are know that we are an interdisciplinary team. And they don't want to hear from me all the time, right? There's things I'm passionate about, I hold to. ABG interpretation is one of them, but those other things I like to outsource because it is so important that they see different perspectives from our interdisciplinary team. And just for the program that we built in Memorial Hermann, one of the main things I want Tim to get out of it is just kind of like you said, Mindy, is being an active member advocating for their patients, being able to stand up and say, hey, wait, why are we doing this? Being able to ask questions.
Absolutely. And some of that too comes from just not having that experience. Like you said, you had a resident that hadn't gone through that. And we found out last year through an episode of RT Sidebar that one of my students had gone through a pediatric death at clinic in their first semester. And I had no clue that as their DCE, I had no clue. And we had an entire episode where we all needed tissues, right? But that death and dying is so important, and exposing, young clinicians to that is really, really important. And even simulating, walking them through what that's going to look like. Some of the things that we do to try to kind of prepare students for that is they'll go through ACLS and PALS, and they can do everything absolutely right, and the patient still doesn't make it.
Absolutely.
Just to give them that you can still do everything right and not get the outcome that you're looking for. And some of those things where, like, well, what did I do? Nothing. You did absolutely everything the right way, kind of guides them and gives them that experience in a simulated environment before they live it out.
Yeah.
And so that was just one of those crazy episodes that we've had here on Sidebar. But have you guys had people reaching out to you? And if so, how can you be reached?
Great question. So you had asked about, Mindy, I think you had asked about retention, but you asked about recruitment too. We no longer have to actively recruit because we've done a good job at kind of networking about this. But people they're like, oh, I want to be supported like this, so I want to come there. So we have an email. It's Respiratory Residency at memorialhermann.org. And people are constantly emailing, hey, when are you opening up your next cohort? I'm interested in doing adults at this campus. Do you have availability? And now we're able to be a little bit more selective because we do have that ability. But I encourage, if anyone's interested in respiratory residencies and the creation and how to do things to build that ROI to support to your C-suite, like we need this too. Or if you're a student and you're wanting to be a resident, reach out. I also have lots of contacts around the country that have residencies. But yes, that is the way you would contact us.
Did I hear of like a quarterly or a monthly meeting that you guys are doing? Is that like rumor, or is that a real thing?
That is a real thing. And probably 3 months ago, we went underneath the ARC. You may have heard of NRTC. That was a group that we created for the last couple of years, but now we're in the ARC. We have our own Connect page. It's called New Grad Residency Programs. We have a monthly meeting next week, I think, and next Thursday at 3 p.m. Keep it consistent. Next week we have Mary Bina, who actually is in Texas as well. She's at Cook Children's, I think. She's going to be talking about the program they have there. They don't call it a residency program, but it is essentially a residency program they've been doing, and they're going to talk all about their program. And every month we have someone around the country come and talk about residency program stuff. I'm hoping to actually have Dr. Brian Walsh come in a couple months to talk about curriculum building, because everyone always wants to know, what are you putting into your residency curriculum? And Dr. Brian Walsh is really big on that DACOM method, and he's going to come talk about that. So if you're interested, you can find us on the ARC Connect. It's underneath the hospital education community. But yes, not a secret.
Not a
It's not a
secret.
secret. It's not a rumor. Mindy, you got something?
So we had this conversation yesterday. A lot of new grads, even newer RTs that have been maybe out for a year or two, and I know you guys do a lot of education, but do you teach them how to actually go up to somebody and say, hey, my name is so-and-so and I'm a respiratory therapist? Because you see a lot of students who struggle with introduction to the team or even to patients.
So Jessica does a really great job of making sure that they know that they have to advocate for their patient.
Okay, good.
So they introduce themselves, they speak to the whole team, just like they are a member of the physician team. Mine do a really great job of speaking up on rounds. They'll bump in and be like, no, can we change this, please? This is going on with this patient. We need to fix this. And so she does a really great job of fixing those soft skills before they come back to me.
That is what I like to hear, because, rounding is very important, especially the team. And like we said, we talked yesterday how important it is to have respiratory present at rounds. And if we teach them young, that's going to be a lifelong, for them to be involved.
Yeah. And something in addition, I make them make a LinkedIn account. I make them update their email signatures. I'm really encouraging that professionalism. I actually ask them if they're ARC and TSRC members right from the get-go, and I explore what that involves. And I actually, for every cohort, the last 4, CC has come and she's talked about professionalism. Yeah, we love CC, right? And she's so engaging, and she shares the why and how inexpensive it is. And I just recently shared about that next gen network that they have on the ARC. So yes, I think, like I mentioned, if I drive anything home, it's professionalism.
Oh, yeah. Good. I'm glad to hear that, because we need more of that throughout our profession to continue to grow and be professional.
Yeah, she does such a great job that my new grads are more professional than my people who've been there for 20 something years.
Okay,
they
good.
Do a much better job.
If I could give you a gold star right now, I would.
Right. Yeah. And there's so many of these residencies and internships that are popping up. It is something that nursing's done it for a long time. Physicians have done it for a long time. And you said that the mid-levels have been doing it too,
Yes.
right? So why not? Why would we act like we're different and special and not do something like this? There is so much growth and so much potential. I was kind of telling you guys a little bit about an internship that I was able to build, and those students graduated in May of 2020, right in the height of COVID. And of course, we had everybody that was being prone, and vent checks were changed to, different things like that. And ventilators were outside of the room and just all the different things. And traveling therapists were bouncing around everywhere, right? And these new grads that finished in May of 2020, when it was December of 2020 and travelers were everywhere, they were saying, how long have you been doing this? They were thinking that these therapists that have gone through programs like an internship and a residency, they operate like they have 3 to 5 years experience within the first year. And they're just blown away by the amount of knowledge and the amount of know-how that they have to operate in that facility.
Yeah.
And the confidence that they have. Absolutely. So, where do you see this going? Where do you see do you have an apex that you see? Is there a peak at this? Is there a top of the top? What does that look like?
I mean, for me, that would be if every facility had one, right? Like nursing does it, it's Vizient recognized.
Sure.
It should be standard. That would be my goal for it.
Yeah, and I have reached out to Vizient actually about it. It's something they've thought about, but they haven't really put a lot of work into. I'm working with my VP of system education to look at a national-wide study that would look at using that modified Casey Fink across those that have residencies. Because again, we know it's important, we know it holds value, but we also need to prove that. And so that right now, everything you pull is from nursing. And so my first step would be that. And then 5 years from now, we would be able to say these things need to be on everybody's curriculum. We already know some of those: communication, ethics, death and dying, some of those things that nursing does, right? Simulation, PALS, BLS, all that.
Yeah.
So my immediate goal is to somehow get that nationwide survey essentially assessed. Then in a few years, be able to say, okay, this is what we think needs to happen at everywhere. And then how do you assess that and create a benchmark to, like Vizient, to create a benchmark to say, my program has 4s, your program has 3s, but you need to get here, right? And so that's how Vizient works, right? Memorial Hermann, their nursing residency, they'll be like, oh man, we're falling short right here, but we're doing really well here. And so then they'll change. And so how can we do that if we can't benchmark? Right now, I can just talk to you and say, hey, that program you had, you're doing X, Y, and Z. How can I incorporate that? But how can I say that I'm doing really well?
Yeah.
If I don't have anyone else to compare. And so that monthly meeting, some of those discussions are around that. How can we make this a staple for respiratory as well? One of the things that in the last meeting that I was talking about is creating a subcommittee to start exploring some of those curriculum items. Like, I think if we get enough experts in a room that have a program or a program like this to say, these are 10 things that we think you need to incorporate among your program. Now, I'm not going to say you need to do a 6, 8, 10, 12-month program. I'm not going to say what you need to do clinically, but we know all these things will apply to every resident around the country. So that's coming. It's just, I'm still getting those experts in a room.
Yeah. That would be, it's like putting everybody in one room is the hardest thing to do.
Steps.
Absolutely. So is there a particular resident that stands out for you? Like, there's a huge success story that somebody was like that quietest, most meek person that snapped at a resident or, really advocated for their patient.
So our residency program is a little bit unique because it is a system residency. So, we have the 13 acute hospitals. So residencies can come from all of them. They come to me and then they go back to their campus. And I do keep up with them. I'll reach out to them regularly. I think for me, I try to stay like Switzerland in terms of, I'm their safe space. I'm their safe space. So I have built a relationship with a lot of them. I think for me, a memorable situation related to residents was in my last cohort. There were 4 females, and they were all new to the neopeds world. And we know that neopeds isn't completely highlighted on in school. And so there is that gap there. And that's where a lot of residencies spend their time as neopeds. These 4 individuals started the program feeling very overwhelmed by just taking care of babies and pediatrics. And by the end of it, they were thanking me for the relationship that they were able to get, and how now if they have problems at work, they can say, hey, so-and-so, can you come help me? I can't remember how to set up this HFOV. Or, hey, I'm having a really hard time. Can we come talk about it? And so for me, what drives my passion is to know that I've been able to build that peer support, enhance clinical knowledge, but also build the support to say, I have somebody I can go and say, I need help, or I need to talk to somebody about it. Them literally thanking me for them building a relationship was very fulfilling.
This is a really cool time in respiratory therapy. We have so many things that's going on throughout our profession. Compact licensure, the residency, the APRT, the ARC is behind everything. But do you guys know that you're also pioneers? Because you're pushing the profession forward. And that's my goal. I know that's JJ's goal. And it always brings me to tears because you guys are as passionate as I am about our profession. And I'm going to cry like a baby because this is what we need to do. And we need to bring our whole profession together in order to be at that level with the nurses and then have, that relationship that we want as a profession. So thank you so much. Even JJ's in tears. So
Every time I'm on. Every time.
I'm very, very sappy. If you guys don't know me, I show my feelings on my sleeve. So when I do my talk later, you guys are going to see me cry because it's this is the passion.
We were talking in the leadership workshop yesterday. We were trying to figure out some of these things, like how to get involvement into the profession, we had a number of folks in the leadership workshop yesterday, and they all had a minimum of 15 or 20 years experience, right? And it's like, how do we get the next, or like our future leaders, right? And so those are some of the things that we were brainstorming, and what you guys are doing is creating a foothold and a foundation of, this is the expectation that you will be in these leadership seminars.
Yeah, so you asked about my favorite resident.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm not Switzerland, so I do have favorites. One of my favorites, he went through the residency in the first cohort. He is basically my mini me, but taller than me, right? So
Right.
if you know me as a clinician, I am very loud, I'm very passionate, and I will tell you when I think that you are not doing the right thing for my patient, very clearly. He's the same. And he has spoken up numerous times. In any unit you put him in, he doesn't care. He stands up for his patients. And he did that. They didn't want to extubate this patient. He was like, absolutely not. I'm going to go find an adult doctor. And I was like, oh, you learned from me. Thank you. And now he's training to be a supervisor. And he was a new grad in that first cohort, but he is a leader unofficially and about to be officially, right? So that is the kinds of things that this programs will get you, is pushing those younger ones forward. And he's actually looking to be an advanced practitioner. He's looking at that.
That's really, really cool.
And so one of the things we haven't talked about is some of those metrics that we do look at. And one of those metrics is, just as you guys have kind of alluded to, we want 51% of our residents to move up or present at a conference, create an abstract, be a preceptor, take lead, be a supervisor, do extra. And so that, while 51% seems low, I'm starting somewhere, right? I got to start somewhere. So that is the expectation, is that the program will drive that professionalism that you're talking about, Minnie, that will drive that involvement, make them come to a TSRC, ARC meeting to learn, to continue the professional development. One of the things I always get asked is, well, students don't want to go back to more school. It sounds like this is more school. And I tell them the very first day, this is not school. We are intentionally investing in your guys' future career, because one, you're getting paid to be here. Two, you have already learned about APRB, but have you really learned how to apply it and when to use it? Or ABG interpretation. I could go on and on about ABG interpretation, and it's in part of my lecture this afternoon, but sure, you can interpret, it's a respiratory alkalosis, but what do you do then? How many times do I talk to my residents? They don't know. They're like, I can say, okay, it's this, but now what am I supposed to do? I want them to not only know what they're supposed to do, but then say, hey, Mindy, you're the APRT. I'd like to change the rate. I'd like to go up on PEEP to 12. My plateaus are 20. They're minimal. This patient's having issues with oxygenation. I want them to make that adjustment by having that discussion. And so, like she said, I'm investing in all of them to be that I want them, because I was talking to, again, Dr. Brian Walsh yesterday, is like, you can as one single provider, you can take care of your patients great, right? Wonderfully. But if you teach all 75 of those people the things that you find that are important to patient quality, evidence-based, and you're enhancing so many more of those, that care for patients. And so that is why residency is important, is because you're able to hit a more global picture, I guess is the way I think about it.
Yeah, this has been such a great episode. You guys are amazing. And like I said, definitely pioneers of respiratory therapy. So keep doing what you're doing. Towards the end of our podcast, we always do shout outs. So if you know a respiratory therapist, or one of the students you went through residency, or somebody, family member, your kids, that you would like to shout out to thank them, or, give a kudos. You guys get your...
Oh gosh, I have lots of shout outs. I'm going to shout out Jody Collins, and that's the person who helped get this program off the ground. She is no longer my direct boss, but she's a nurse, and she advocated for the RTs at Memorial Hermann and said we need to be doing the same things as nursing. And I'm going to shout out my babies because they've got to see firsthand what it means to be a strong working mom.
I'm going to shout out to my kids and my husband for allowing me to be slightly a workaholic and get all of these things done because there's no way to do it in a normal amount of time. Also to Bobby Melton, who stayed at TMC this week and held down the fort, and she has supported me and seen like the growth that I could have. She's literally the best boss. She just lets me do what I want.
She is the best boss. She used to be my boss too.
JJ, what about you?
Well, I mean, we always have to shout out my wife and our producer, our editor. She's amazing. Today, she's behind the scenes. Usually, she's in like top right window, but today she's behind the scenes. She's much more comfortable back there. That's where she thrives. She loves telling us what to do behind the scenes, and it's amazing. But as far as respiratory therapists, I'm going to shout out CC. CC is my program director, and she has been somebody that has mentored me since like the middle of the like 20 teens. She's helped me grow as an educator, and she's amazing.
And if you ever want her to come do a professionalism talk, she is awesome.
Yeah, she'll whip whoever into shape.
Yeah. So my shout out is actually to Jessica. So Jessica and I have talked recently about some things. I know what it's like to go through and grow as a mom. And she does that with grace and professionalism. And I know it's not easy to be away from your babies. But my shout outs to you because being a mom and being like aggressive and moving forward through a profession, it's not always easy.
Thank you.
Y'all are just wild.
And
I
I'm just
can't
not
do this.
tearing up. I'm actually crying. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give her a hug.
Everybody's tearing up. This has been absolutely amazing. Alicia went to go get the tissue. She's going to just throw them out to everybody.
Tissues.
It's just so cool to see the passion that we have for respiratory therapy and this profession. And there's going to be so many more episodes that are just as touching. There's going to be so much more encouragement, so much positivity, so much innovation that comes through this wire line, through this podcast. And you guys keep doing what you're doing. You are making waves. I've told Mindy many times that she's a pioneer. She passed that off to you guys. You guys are blazing trails. This is absolutely amazing. And I am just blessed to be a part of it. So if you have not been listening or tuning into RT Sidebar, get on it. Get on it because you guys are missing out on amazing stories just like this. And if you have been and you are one of those barflies that jumps in religiously and joins in all the time, just stay tuned because there's more to come.
More to come.
Vapotherm does not practice medicine or provide medical services or advice. Any clinical recommendations provided herein are solely those of the speaker. Practitioners should refer to the full indications for use and operating instructions of any products referenced before use. Hosts and producers are paid employees or consultants of Vapotherm, and our guests are not compensated.